And what's wonderful about that is when it is that's it, then it writes the talk for you. I want to take that as a springboard. How many people have walked this earthly journey and been brought to your knees to the dark night of your soul where you didn't know if you could go the next day? Look at that. That's what connects us. We've all gotten to those places, the dark night of the soul where we didn't know that we could go on. It's part of the earthly journey. How many of you have ever gotten to the place of total and complete elation where life was more full and joyous and beautiful than you've ever experienced it before? Look around. That connects us too. We're having an earthly experience. And part of the oneness that we talk about is that we are sharing an earthly journey. We're taking the same steps, the ups, the downs, and everything in between. We are sharing that. And yet, we're still here. We're still here persevering. We're still here putting one foot in front of the other. And we're figuring out a way to get through those nights where we're frightened down to the core. The marrow of our bones is shaking. I don't know if I can do it. And those moments where you gather the strength and the courage and the wisdom to know that I'm going to get through the next day and run this race, this human race, at the highest level of being. It's all a part of us, and we're still here. We like to say in Unity, we're here to live it all. In fact, I'm going to invite you to repeat that. I'm here to live it all. I want you to think about the dark night soul, the dark night of the soul that you went through maybe yesterday or last week or last month, and say the same thing again. Bring it right here into your heart and say, I'm here to live it all. We're here to grow. We're here to stretch. We're here to become. We're here to evolve. And then bring that celebration. Bring that elation that's beyond anything you've ever experienced. Hand on your heart and say, I'm here to live it all. And through all of this earthly journey, there is an energy, there is a power, there is a force that's guiding you, that's uplifting you, that's protecting you and comforting you. Religious people would call that God. We like to be spiritual people, so if you want to call it God, that's okay. It can have 1,000 names, but it is moving and stirring and taking you through all of it on this roller coaster ride that is the human journey. But many times that spirit of God, as love, as light, is doing business as the grandparents, the grandfathers, and the grandmothers from centuries back. They're speaking. They're still here. Take a breath with me. Let it go. They're still here. They're still in that breath, and they're doing business as your life. Layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of ancestors whose energy lives not only around us, not only within us, but as us. And so again, hand on your heart, the ancestors live as me. Together. The ancestors live as me. Do you feel that? I don't care if you call it God or Joe or the ancestors, but it's living at the point of you, the ancients. The ancient people whose strengths, whose power, whose wisdom, whose courage, whose goodness is living in the very cells of our body and our souls. They vibrate as the beat of our heart, the rhythm of our heart, and they're in the very breath that we just took. And it matters less that that breath you just took is panting. Anybody recognize that breath? Or it's a deep breath of inner knowing. Take that breath with me. They're still here. It doesn't matter what the experience is on the outside. It matters only that there is an awareness that they're still here. Our lives, every life in this room and those of you online, you are the legacy. It's the legacy of those who have come before you. Our ancestors are no less an integral part of the community, of the family, of the life that you are living today than those with skin on sitting in the room, those that are still on the earth, or those that are part of your friendship circle or your spiritual circle. The ancestors are just as much a part of that community by right of our remembering, by right of our consciousness. Each of us is the fulfillment. You are the fulfillment of the hopes, the dreams, the visions, and the aspirations of so many people. In fact, let's read that statement together. There are ancients whose strength, courage, and wisdom live in the very cells of our bodies, They vibrate as the beat of our hearts and the air that we breathe. You are the fulfillment of many generations. Where you sit today in your life, it's not an accident. Your experience of life is not an accident. Therefore, I want to begin, before I go any farther, with calling out the names of those grandparents. I want you to actually call the names, the ones that you maybe liked and the ones that maybe you had trouble with, because they are all a part of the fabric of you. We're going to call their names into the circle right now because they're filling the seats that are empty. So I invoke today the names of Carl and Marie Buck into this space, into this space. I call forth the names of Inez and Donald Burdick, who live in this space and this space. On the count of 3, I want you to call the grandparents into the room. 1, 2, 3. Nice warm up. You have wisdom and strength and power in that name. The name itself, the speaking of the name, brings the energy into the space. On the count of 3, speak it as if you are connected to something so magnificent that you are ready to live life at a fuller place. 1, 2, 3. Those names you just said, they're still here. They're still here. They never left. And guess what? As you call their names out, they are whispering your name. They are whispering your name and moving you in the direction of your highest and best earthly experience. Last week, I spoke about a chain that which is, you could call God, you could call light, you could call love, you could call it life, that unites all of us. We are connected together as a chain. There's only one of us in the room. There's only one of us on the planet. But I wanted you to recognize today that this isn't just contained to the earthly experience right now. This chain, of which we are an integral link, connects us to the ancestors. And on the other side, it connects us to the grandchildren that have yet to come. And when we drop the chain, we are the missing link that needs to pick the chain back up. We are united with people who have lived, you never even met, but they live in you. Yes? It reaches back into our future, so there's no time and space in God. There is no time or space in God. Science has shown it. Spirituality is showing it. So what we begin to realize is that as we are holding a vibration as a link within this chain, affecting everybody on the planet, it's also coming back to us, and we are affecting our past. We are affecting our future. The vibration that we are holding is not only going out in that direction, we are reaping the benefits of it coming back to us. The love, the wisdom, the peace, the joy of the ancestors is coming back. And so when you play your role and you hold that link, you are benefiting as well as being a servant. As you serve humanity, as you serve your lineage, you are also being served. So just a quick question. How many people do you think, if you go back 10 generations, how many people do you think it took to get you? Just call it out. 800. Somebody said 1,000. It took a minimum of 1,024 people 10 generations back so that you could become you. The breath you just took is nothing short of a miracle. And the energy of 1,024 plus people coming into expression so that you could be you. Do not treat your life as if it is an accident. The hopes and the dreams, the breath you just took right now is a miracle. In fact, say that with me. The breath I just took is a miracle. My existence is a miracle. My existence. Well, one of you really believes that. One of you is really convicted. Thank you, Tara. My existence is a miracle of 1,024 people together. My existence is a miracle of 1,024 people. You know, somebody said first service, but what about the difficult people in my ancestry? What about those people I just didn't like? They are also a part of the vibration that is you. And now, when you recognize this truth, you can have a relationship with them as they are on the other end of a chain in ethereal worlds, in spiritual worlds, where all the earthly crap that they brought is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So if you cannot connect with that ancestor, guess who's got the problem? Not them. I prepare for a lot of memorial services, and I have to say all the time to the people who are still on earth grieving, when they're talking about the good qualities and the not so good qualities, or maybe we should do it right so that they are honored, they are so free of any earthly concern. When they get to those spiritual vibrations and dimensions, they are completely and totally free of any earthly care. And they've dropped all the stuff that was in the way. So if there's still stuff between you and them, guess who has to do the dropping? Guess who has to do the movement in consciousness, the movement in heart? It is us. So I want to explore this idea. You know, many know that my first ordination was as an interfaith minister. I'm all about building bridges of understanding between the world's faiths. Jesus is my main two guy, but I'm also a pagan at heart. And I want to explore a little bit of interfaith work today to prove the point. I'm not the only one saying what I'm going to share today. We celebrate the many paths to God, many paths to the one, many paths to the chain, many paths to creation. Earth-based tradition, I'll start there because it's really my go-to. In earth-based traditions, ancestors are revered. They are revered as guides and as protectors. Their presence is not just a memory, but it's a living, breathing reality. Hand on your heart again. The ancestors are a living, breathing reality. Indigenous cultures emphasize the idea that the wisdom of the ancestors is available to us through what? Call it out. Through the earth. Through those we call the tall people out the windows. The tall people. They are available to us through the trees, through the earth and all the elements. So you're having a relationship. You have the ability to have a relationship with those who have come before you when you are having a relationship with the sun and the moon and the stars and the flora and the fauna and the animals and the tall people and the trees and the earth itself. This is how they speak to us. They speak to us through these things, and they're all whispering. They're all whispering, I'm still here. Together, we're still here. We're still here. So how do we cultivate that relationship with the ancestors? How do you do it as an earth-based? We got a lot of earth-based people here. How do you do it? What's that? Sweat lodge. I'm saying just go put your feet in the ocean. Put your feet into the river and listen. Close your mouth, put your ears on, and listen to the flow of the river, the ocean. Go out and hug the tall people. Go out and put your feet, take off the shoes, any block between you and the mama, and put your feet into the earth and listen. The ancestors are speaking. Yes? Go take a mindful meditational walk somewhere in nature. You know, I have found the presence of God, the presence of this chain, the presence of peace and harmony and strength and wisdom, and the connection with my grandparents, who I love dearly, more outside than I have in any sanctuary. Somebody said one point, we should put stained glass on all these windows, and I said, never. Look out there is the sanctuary of God and the ability to talk to Carl Buck and to Donald Burdick and to the woman who taught me to play piano. She lives in the leaves of those trees, Inez Burdick. And Marie Buck, who taught me the value of a good, hard day's work, and she lives in that tree right out there. We'll never put stained glass. Religion has sometimes shut down the ability to find our ancestors by giving us, no, it has to come through this portal. Here's the book, follow this. I'm saying the book is sometimes in the way, but sometimes it is the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. In Buddhism, in the Buddhist tradition, there's a thing called dependent origination. Say that with me. Dependent origination. It speaks to the profound interconnection of all life. Nothing exists in isolation, past, present, or future. But don't take my word for it. Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Buddhist monk, my go-to when it comes to Buddhism, this is what he had to say. Let's read it together. We are our ancestors. We are our grandchildren. And they're whispering, we're still here. There are many people sitting in this congregation today that have recently said goodbye to their beloved. I want you as a congregation to hold those people in your heart and to say with me, they're still here. They're still here. So again, I ask, how do we cultivate a relationship if they're still here? With this Buddhist perspective, how do we cultivate a relationship? Here's how I do it, and it's going to. And Joel Blackford's sitting right there. He's the one that introduced me, Joel and Marianne, to this practice that absolutely has informed my every morning and my every evening. I get in the car every morning, and I call in the Council of Elders. I call in the band of angels of all these people, and I speak their names. And on those days where it's hard and I'm on my knees and I don't know how to do it, I call them in more passionately. And I say, let's co-create together today. You know, my job requires a lot of me. And if it was me alone doing it, I would have had to quit long ago. But I call in the Council of Elders. Call them angels, call them grandparents. I don't care what you call them, they exist. Now, 5,000 ancestors can be a little bit crowded in a Jeep Wrangler. Or it can be a fullness of being, of living and knowing that I am filled up to overflowing. And then I send, this is what Joel taught me, send them forth. I don't know how to do this meeting. I don't know how to do this challenge that's before me. And I choose them by name. These are the ones I'm sending today. Go before me and make the way clear. And I say, today we're going to create some love. Today, grandma and grandpa, uncle and aunt, brother and sister and friend, let's create more love on the planet. This is a regular spiritual practice that I invite you into. To know that you're not walking the earth alone. That those energies, those names, those spirits, those incredible souls are still here, and they are still here. Let your car be crowded with love. Let your car be crowded with wisdom, and let the meetings be crowded with energies that nobody else can see but you. But you can feel them coming from the trees and the earth. You can feel them coming from the consciousness. I often call them that committee of elders. But 5,000 ancestors are how I live my life at the fullness of what God has asked me to do. Let's go to Hinduism. Anybody follow a Hindu path? You know the word samsara? Samsara? People have interpreted it means the cycle of life and death and rebirth. They say, oh, that's reincarnation, but samsara is way more than reincarnation. The soul moves through different lifetimes, learning, growing, evolving, and becoming. But it's not just about reincarnation. It also reminds us that our actions, our karma, is impacting future generations. The decisions that we make, the karma is affecting our life and what will happen tomorrow and next year, but it's affecting the grandchildren. Therefore, if we follow the lineage, the choices of our grandparents are affecting us today. In the Bible, they talk all about the sins of the father. I want to talk about the blessings of the grandfathers, the blessings of the grandmothers, because their choices, their empowered choices to overcome, live in me. And so that vibration is coming to me. But if it's reincarnation, I thought about this today and it made me laugh a little bit. If I was on the planet generations ago, I am reaping not only the karma just with the soul, but what I did on the earth is affecting what I'm experiencing on earth today. And I reflected on this and I thought about that ridiculous song that used to be on Dr. Demento. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. Is it possible that the united energy that is only in the essence of God, as God alone as light, that the decisions I made in my past life are affecting me today? The answer is an emphatic yes. Samsara is happening by the karma of my grandparents. And so what do I do about that? I have an ancestry wall in my house. 2 of them. One for the in-laws and one for the names I've mentioned here today. And I regularly take time to sit at that altar. You know, we're all about altars in Unity. We have our sacred places to go find God. The 2 altars that mean the most to me as I sit on the wall of the grandparents. And I live into the energy of the choices that they made. I live into the energy of the choices they made that are affecting my life today, the good and the not so good. And I receive that energy. I look into their eyes. I look into the stories of their lives. And I take the energy and I claim it as mine and then cleanse what I need to cleanse, but accept and hold on to that which I need to hold on to. That ancestral altar is a way to find God. God by whatever name you want to give it. I visit it often and I sit silently in their presence. I invite you to December 4th when we have our service of remembrance. That'll be a way that you can connect with the ancestors, to come here and to speak their names aloud. I live in the inheritance of what I got from the father, the mother, from generations back. You know, it took me years to realize that the stories that my grandfather, who was my hero, remains my hero, weren't necessarily all true. I had this great realization, and it makes me laugh because my grandpa Buck lives in me in such a way when I tend to be a little serious, and those who work with me know I can be a little over serious and get a little anxious. I go live at the altar of my grandpa, who convinced me for most of my life that I was related to Jesse James and Sitting Bull. And then the realization when life is getting heavy and I sit there and I look at my grandpa's eyes and I go, the only Sitting Bull in our lineage is you. But the reality is it's holy and it's sacred, and he lives in me and he helps me get through my seriousness. He helps me get through when I'm taking life so seriously that I'm just tied up in knots. He's still here. He's still here. He's still laughing. He's still telling tall tales, and he's still smiling. Let's go to Jewish tradition. Anybody speak Hebrew here? Good, my pronunciation won't offend anybody. Let me know if I'm close. There's a concept in Judaism. Let's go ahead and put the next slide up there. Lador Vidor. Say that with me. Lador Vidor, which simply means from generation to generation to generation to generation. It is the passing of wisdom and culture from one generation to the next. The stories, the teachings, the books, and the experience of the ancestors are not just historical accounts in the Jewish tradition. They are living energies meant to guide our lives today. Go spend some time at a Passover Seder or just a Hanukkah meal and hear the story passed down from generation to generation to generation. It's through written and oral tradition these stories are passed from one person to the next. And when we let these stories live in us, our ancestors live in us. So my next practice, and it's one that'll drive your grandkids nuts. Don't give them up. Call them into the living room and say, let me tell you about your grandfather. Let me tell you about your great-grandmother. One of the best moments of my life was when my grandson Connor came to me. I think he was doing it for a school project, but he says, tell me about your life. Nowadays, I think this is a tradition that has been lost. We stop telling the story because we get this look. Be okay with and tell the story. Because if you do not, you're dropping the chain. And the ancestors are knocking at the door, trying to send to your grandkids something of great value that may be boring as hell to them. But when they come back and they're 25 and 30, they're going to say, thank you for sharing the story. It is a spiritual exercise to keep the oral tradition alive. Yes? Regularly tell the story of your grandparents. Tell your story. You know, and then doing so, we connect with God, which is a Muslim idea that fits into this. Al-Warith, which is one of the names of God. W-A-R-I-T-H, Al-Warith, which basically means the inheritance is all God. So when I tell the stories, I'm connecting with God that was the great-great-grandmothers. And when I connect with my grandchildren, I'm telling the story of God, which is the chain, and something beautiful happens. We remember we belong to each other. And then when we know that I belong to this lineage, I also belong to the lineage of the human race. And God happens because God is the inheritor of all of it. It all belongs to God. Say that with me. It all belongs to God. We don't want to leave the Christians out. Christianity is also my bedrock, as it is being a pagan and being true to the earth. That we read in the book of Hebrews, St. Paul and I wrestle. We love to wrestle. We love to go back and forth, and he did, his humanist and his divine. This is what they say in Hebrews 12:1. Let's read it together. We stand surrounded by all those who have gone before, an enormous cloud of witnesses. Christians have a relationship with the ancestors that comes through dreams. Sometimes it sounds like a drug trip when you're reading that book. They're dreams. And the ancestors would also say it's all dream time. This is all made up. But look at the Bible. Read it with new eyes. They're talking about dream time all the way through. And they wake up from their dream and there's an epiphany, but based on what they got in the dream time. It's another way to experience our ancestors is to listen to the dreams that come to you at night. The veil is extremely thin when the conscious mind is turned off. The veil is very thin and those energies are there. I'm saying keep a dream journal. Record it. There are messages there that are important. Spiritual downloads that are happening in dreams. And if you don't do that, you're again breaking the chain and you're not getting the value. The veil is much thinner when the conscious mind is at rest. You know, Hollywood has the same idea. One of my favorite movies of all time, and it's that ending that I don't know if anybody guessed ahead of time, the movie The Sixth Sense. And what do they say at the end, the big kicker at the end? I see dead people. And we don't know who's dead or who's alive because it's all a unified one experience. I'm saying go to sleep and invite the dead people. Or maybe not the dead people, but the arisen people. Invite those who have ascended. Invite your beloved wife who is absolutely speaking. I told Bill, Sue is speaking. And I told anybody in this room who's lost a loved one, keep listening because they are speaking. And when you go to sleep at night and you want to wrap your arms around them, wrap your mind and your heart and your spirit around it and record the messages because the ancestors, 5,000 of them, are still speaking. Yes? And they're all saying, we're still here. Hand on your heart. Let's say it. They're still here. They're still here. Now, as I like to do, I'm going to set religion aside. Let's put all the religious stuff off to one side and let's go to science. And I love how science and spirituality are becoming partners. I love how science is proving the concepts that we've been talking about in unity for years and years and years. Let's go to, by the way, don't you love that picture? I see dead people. I see alive people. I see spirits, and they're all dancing around me. And when I'm closed down, I can't experience them, feel them, or know them. Dance. Dance with the ancestors. But let's go to science. In modern science, we learned that the atoms in our bodies, the very atoms in our bodies, have been cycling through Earth's ecosystem for billions and billions of years. Breathe that in. You just breathed in the energy of Mother Teresa. It feels good, doesn't it? Breathe in. You just breathed in the energy of Gandhi. That feels good. Now take a deep breath. You just breathed in the energy of Adolf Hitler. What are you going to do with that? Transmute it. Somewhere there was a forgotten left there. It's the same idea. There's only one of us, and we're exchanging energies. The atoms in our body have been cycling for billions of years. The very molecules of oxygen that we breathe have been part of countless other organisms. Human, plant, and animal for millennia. I hope you will come next Sunday to the annual animal blessing and experience the ancestors as you sit at the feet of a dog or a cat or a parrot or a llama. Anybody bring in a llama? I've always been surprised. I've blessed chickens and rabbits and snakes. And somebody brought a horse one year. We're exchanging life from centuries back, and the idea that our cells and our bodies are one with the cells of the ancestors and the body of the ancestors is not just a pretty theory. It is a scientific reality. That gives me hope. That gives me strength. I'm not doing this alone. The atoms that make up our bones, I'm going to invite the band to come back up. The atoms that make up our bones, our blood, and our cells have existed since the dawn of time, cycling and recycling, cycling and recycling. There's a reincarnation of energy that's happening every time you take a breath. And those cells contain the energetic whisper, we're still here. Physicist Lawrence Krauss writes this. Let's put that up there and read it together. Every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. And the atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand. Take your hands and put them together. There is no separation from one star and another, from one ancestor and another. They come together and they make up you. Your breath is a miracle. Your life is a miracle. And it is the collection of far more than 1,024 people. It is the very essence of God, thirsting, hungry for life that is you. Our job is to hold that chain and to never forget it. Go to the wall and look into their eyes and laugh. Go hang out with the tall people out and take a walk and put your feet into the river. And remember, drive down the road and be the crazy nut that's talking to the ancestors behind the wheel. And then look and smile and laugh and say, I'm related to Sitting Bull. I'm related to Jesse James. But you must recognize that you're not walking this earthly journey alone. And so back to my original point, life's going to be tough at times. Walking the earth is not for the faint of heart. It's not going to be easy. But there are whispers of 5,000 ancestors standing beside you, living inside you, living as you. Their strength, their courage, their wisdom, and their power.